Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Wednesday. We've just been speaking to Mikel Arteta and Pablo Mari, actually ahead of tomorrow night's huge Europa League semi-final first leg against Villarreal. So I thought I'd pop on as usual, talk about what we heard in today's press conference, go over some of the big lines and look a little bit ahead to that game tomorrow. We'll do another video in the morning tomorrow, focusing entirely on that Villarreal game, looking at the big decisions as usual that Mikel Arteta has got to make, give my predicted 11, that sort of thing. But certainly some very good team news coming out of Arsenal ahead of that game in Spain tomorrow, which I'll get to later on in this video. But first, we've got to really talk about the whole takeover situation, if you can call it that. I suppose the statement being released by Stan Kroenke and KSE last night, I'm sure you've probably read it, but if you haven't, this is what they said. In recent days, we have noted media speculation regarding a potential takeover bid for Arsenal Football Club. We remain 100% committed to Arsenal and are not selling any stake in the club. We have not received any offer and we will not entertain any offer. Our ambition for Arsenal remains to compete to win the biggest trophies in the game, and our focus remains on improving our competitiveness on the pitch to achieve this. So very defiant, adamant statement from KSE. It's what we expected. The stance has always been that they're not going to sell. I've said that in recent videos, despite this takeover interest from Daniel Ek. Whether it changes Daniel's mindset with this takeover remains to be seen. The word is he's still going to be putting in this bid in the next sort of week or so to test the resilience, I suppose, of the Kroenke's stance when it comes to Arsenal. But I think what we've seen here with this statement is very much that the Kroenkes are still committed and do not want to sell, which has always been the case. It's always been what comes out of people close to the Kroenkes, talk to anyone about it, and it's always that they are not going to sell. They've never sold a single share in any of their sports franchises. They still see Arsenal as a jewel in their crown, really. And so it would take something absolutely monumental to turn their head, and this statement just reaffirms that. And obviously Mikel Arteta at today's press conference was asked a lot about the whole situation, whether it's a distraction, the takeover, the Invincibles being involved, the statement from Stan Kroenke, and I'll just go over a few of the things that he had to say on that. In terms of the statement from the board, and whether he's spoken to them, he said, yes, we spoke to them, and I think they have been very clear. They show their commitment and their ambition to the football club because we all want a successful team on the pitch. It was very clear, and they took away any doubts of the situation. I think he's talking about the statement there and taking away, putting an end to the speculation, which it kind of has in a way. But again, I don't think it really changes much because it was always the case that their stance was they're not going to be selling Arsenal. That has not changed. They haven't wavered. The only way that is going to change is say they got a monumental offer that came in from someone else, or potentially if government force some sort of legislation change when it comes to ownership and how that is run in this country, which obviously that seems an awful long way off despite Boris Johnson and the government's commitment to doing this big government-led review on football ownership. Mikel was asked, do you think that the Kroenkes can lead Arsenal back to good times? And he said, from the very beginning, that's what my perception was. Everything I sensed and all the communications I've had with them, they are fully excited and committed to this project, and they want to push everybody to do what we want to do. He was also asked if he's had any conversations about potential transfer funds this summer, and what they're going to do in terms of rebuilding the squad. And he said it's always been part of the discussion to help improve the team, amongst other things. What I can tell you is that they want to do their best in their capacity to support what we want to do and have a really successful Arsenal on the pitch. Now, this follows on from comments made by Josh Kroenke at the Fans Forum last week, and during a conference call that the Kroenkes had with all the club staff yesterday. In both of those conversations, both of those calls, they said that they would be looking to back the manager this summer in the transfer market and give him money to improve the squad. Now, I'm sure we've heard that all before, and to be honest, and I've said this before, they have allowed Arsenal to spend money recently. Not their money, it's the club's money, because the Kroenkes never put any of their own money in. That's just a given. But they have allowed Arsenal to spend money in recent years. The fact is they've just spent it terribly, and that has not been ideal for anyone. And so I think a lot of the criticism is absolutely justified when it comes to the Kroenkes, but in terms of money being spent, we can't really sit here and say Arsenal haven't spent it, because they have. Look at what they did last summer. Look at what they did the summer before with Pepe. They've allowed money to be spent. Unfortunately, a lot of the money just hasn't been spent on players that have made a massive impact on improving the squad. So that's where a lot of things need to be improved, and the Kroenke certainly have to shoulder some of the responsibility for that, because they've clearly not got the right people in place when it comes to doing deals and working out what the right transfer fees are, that sort of thing. Just on the takeover, we should be hearing from Daniel Ek later today, which will be quite interesting. He is due to speak to CNBC. This sort of conversation is supposed to be around Spotify, but it's understood that he will be answering or asked questions about his interest in Arsenal as well. Now, that interview is due to be broadcast on Sky Sports News later. I think it was live, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But it's coverage from 2:45, we are told. So that will be interesting to hear, whether he's asked if this statement from KSE is going to change his mind about making a bid, or if it's made him even more determined to try and make an offer that can convince the Kroenkes into selling. Because we haven't really heard from Daniel Ek yet. I've contacted him and Spotify in the last few days, and they remain in silence, saying that the only comment, they're not going to expand further on the tweet that he issued on Friday night during the Everton game. So it'll be interesting to see if he does get questioned on it, exactly how far he goes and how open he is about his plans for the club and what he plans to do over the coming weeks in terms of submitting this offer to the Kroenkes. Now, that offer is reported to be around £1.8 billion, but for me that just seems nowhere near enough. I think Kroenke's spent about £1 billion since he's arrived at the club in terms of getting all the shares he needed to take 100% ownership. I think you've got to look at sort of 3 times that amount, 4 times even, for him to even be tempted into selling Arsenal. 1.8 billion, it just doesn't seem like enough to buy a club of Arsenal's size and stature and potential capacity for improving in terms of their value. So I think if Ek is serious about doing business and getting this club, he's going to have to raise a little bit more funds than just 1.8 million to tempt someone like Stan Kroenke into doing business. All right, let's talk about some team news, shall we? Ahead of tomorrow night's game, really good news and surprising news. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Alexander Lacazette and Kieran Tierney are all in contention to feature, according to Mikel Arteta. Now, that is a huge boost. David Luiz has obviously returned to training at the end of last week, so you would expect he will certainly be fit and involved. So that could potentially leave Arsenal with a fully fit squad for this game. And when you think where they were just a few weeks ago in terms of injury, that is a huge improvement. Now, whether all 3 of those, in terms of Aubameyang, Lacazette and Tierney, do start or even make the trip remains to be seen. But the fact is they are all in contention. That is a huge step forward from just a few days ago. Especially Kieran Tierney, when you think he was still due to be about sort of 3 weeks away from full fitness. I mean, we were, at the time of the injury, there was a lot of talk that he might end up missing the whole season, possibly even the Euros. So for him to be back for this semi-final and in contention is a huge boost. This is what Mikel had to say. He said they are all in contention, all of them, including Orba, Laka and Kieran. They are all in contention for the game. It is good news. And he was then pressed more on Tierney and the fact that, this seems like a huge leap forward in terms of his return to fitness and well ahead of schedule. And he said that he didn't need the surgery that we were afraid of at the beginning, and then he's been working like a beast every single day. I don't know if he's going to make it or not tomorrow, but he certainly wants to be as close as possible to that football pitch to give himself the best possible chance. Now, the pictures we've seen from Arsenal training recently, we've not seen any of those 3 involved. So even if they are in contention, that suggests that they're still a little bit way off. And I would be surprised. I think the only one who might go straight into the starting lineup if it's decided that he is fit is Lacazette, just because it's not been too long since he's been playing. I think the other 2, especially Tierney, you think he's been out for a fair while now, to throw him straight back into a semi-final in the intensity of that sort of match just seems like a bit of a long shot. And even Orba, because you think what his body's been through with this illness with malaria, to throw him straight back in again, it kind of feels like something you've got to build the body up to. So I would say if anyone has got the best chance of starting out of those 3, it'll be Laka, but it's certainly a big boost to have all of them potentially involved and in contention. Mikel was asked whether it would be a risk to play these sort of players and throw them straight back in, and this is what he had to say on that. He said, look, we need them because we know we have some players that are in contention and they are the ones who can make the real difference in a big tie like this. But the word risk, I don't like to put players on the pitch if they can't perform and they don't feel secure that they can perform. If it's a risk or we're going to take a gamble, then I don't think it's the right thing to do. And I think that is certainly wise. No one wants to see a player get injured again, having just come back. Yes, we all want Orba in the lineup. We all want Laka in the lineup. We all want Tierney in the lineup, especially Tierney, I think, because he just makes such a huge difference to this Arsenal team, and that would allow Granit Xhaka to move back into central midfield. But you don't want to risk the season. If they are back fit, that's a real boost, but then you've still got plenty of games to go. You've got the second leg next week at the Emirates. You don't want to rush them back in, and suddenly they're going to be a doubt for that game next week. So if there's any sort of doubt involved, any sort of risk involved, I think Arsenal are going to be wise to err on the side of caution when it comes to that one and try and protect them potentially for the end of the season. Because, as I said, you've got the second leg next week, then you've potentially got the final if Arsenal get through that. You've still got some big games in the Premier League, and you don't want to take any risks with these three players. But still, what a huge boost that is for Arsenal. Ahead of a crucial stage in the season. Obviously, tomorrow night brings Unai Emery back to Arsenal for the first time since he's left the club. Mikel has some interesting things to say on him. Actually, I just find them here, and how he spoke to Emery before he took charge. I've actually managed to lose them, which is annoying. Yes, I have managed to lose him. But he said, he admitted that when he took the job, or before he took the job, he actually called Unai Emery, and Unai Emery gave him his thoughts on it all. And Mikel said that was a really nice touch, because a lot of people, it's quite an unusual thing to do for managers to talk to other ones just before they take a job, especially so soon after the other one got sacked. But he said that Unai was great. He gave him some really good advice. He says that they know the same sort of people, so they've come across each other before, and it's going to be interesting to see Unai back. We've got a press conference with him later this afternoon. He's done a couple of interviews recently at Emery where he's tried to steer away from talking about Arsenal in the build-up to this game, and you can understand why his focus really wants to be on Villarreal. But you should get some questions about it today, and it'll be interesting to get his thoughts about coming up against the team that he was in charge of not too long ago. Mikel, when he was asked about, can you ignore the narrative that brings Emery back to Arsenal, I think it does put a bit of pressure on Mikel, the fact that it is Emery, because if Arteta loses to Emery, the manager who he replaced, the manager who was sacked so he could be brought in, it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a big story, especially given Arsenal's disastrous league season now. If Arsenal get knocked out by Unai Emery, that's going to be really tough for Arteta to deal with. But he said, look, I cannot control that. That relationship existed and we cannot go against it. Unai knows the club really well, and we know Unai as well, and we know what he did before he joined here and what he did at the football club, and that is it. Just quickly before I end this video, a couple of points to end on. I'm going to talk about quickly following Balogun and Dani Ceballos. Now on Balogun, obviously the contract announcement came at the beginning of this week, which is good news, something we've been waiting for a while now. Mikel saying, look, it's done and we're really happy about it, really excited about it. It took a while because we had to undo a really complicated situation that was developing. I think the club made a big effort. I think Edu made a great job, and with Flo and his agent, and we're able to find the right agreement for him to stay. Really good news about Balogun. I've spoken about it before, so there's not much more to say on it, but still really positive news. You can see how delighted that Mikel Arteta is about that, because he knows how talented a young player is, and I think he's going to have a big future at Arsenal. Here we go, quickly going back to Unai Emery. I found the quotes again. I thought these were interesting. He said, I spoke to him a few times because we had people in common. Then I spoke to him before I took over at the club, and he was really helpful. A very experienced and successful manager in the Europa League, in particular, with what he's done. There is no doubt he has the tools and knowledge to manage at the top level. He offered me a good opportunity to speak before I took the job, which is sometimes unusual. He was very sincere and hopeful and open, and I am very grateful for that. So nice words from Mikel Arteta about the man he will be going up against in the dugout tomorrow in the Europa League semi-final. Lastly, just on Dani Ceballos' future, I'm sure you might have seen some quotes going around from Dani Ceballos where he's been speaking about where he feels most settled, and he says he feels his game is more suited to La Liga than it is to the Premier League. And Mikel was asked about that and asked about his future, whether there is a chance of bringing Dani back permanently in the summer. And he said, look, we mentioned to you guys before that at the end of the season we have a lot to... we mentioned to you guys at the end of the season we have a lot to play for yet, so I don't want any distractions. We will sit with them, and we are always in contact and in communication with the players and the agents to know what their feelings are, and at the end we will make a common decision for what's best for the club and for the player. Now for me, I just don't see a way that Arsenal are going to sign Dani Ceballos on a permanent basis. I'm not sure it's really worth it. I think he's done all right at times since he's been here, but he's also had some bad games as well, especially this season. And I'm just not sure he's done enough to earn a permanent move to Arsenal. And I'm not sure whether he'd want it either. Certainly by these comments, seems to suggest that he feels that his future is more back in Spain than over here in England. And I think with Arsenal, the rebuild that they need to do this summer, I'm not sure they would want to spend the money it would probably take to get Dani Ceballos out and bring him here on a permanent basis. And judging by some of your comments as well, I think you would probably agree with that. But as always, anything you've heard in this video, let me know what you think. Who should start tomorrow against Villarreal? Should Arsenal risk the likes of Tierney, Aubameyang and Lacazette? Should they move for Dani Ceballos in the summer, or should they let him go back to Spain and spend their money elsewhere? What do you make of Mikel Arteta's comments about the owners? Are you looking forward to hearing from Daniel Ek later? As always, let me know what you think in the comments below. Always appreciate what you guys have to say. Okay, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Do appreciate your time as always. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and I'll be back to talk to you tomorrow ahead of what is going to be a massive game for Arsenal in Villarreal. Until then, everyone, enjoy your day. I'll speak to you very, very soon.